Hey everyone, I've had a couple people ask me for a quick and easy Panther modification tutorial, and since I don't really see much on YouTube at the moment, I guess I'll go ahead and throw one up. This is going to feature the Buzzbee Panther and a PVC reducing bushing, and I guess I'll just start with materials like normal. You're going to need super glue, epoxy, preferably a plastic-based epoxy. You're going to need a 3/4 to 1/2 inch reducing bushing. A small piece of sandpaper to rough everything up, a cutting wheel, or I'm going to use a scroll saw, a sanding drum, a Sharpie, your Buzzbee Panther of course, and you need to have your hot glue gun heating up. And I plugged the pumps on these a little bit of a different way. You guys can just, of course, just add the little drop of hot glue in the front of it like a lot of people do. But I'm actually going to use a piece of PETG. And you're going to also need a ruler. So I guess we're just going to start with, basically how I'm on my Panthers is this whole front part here comes off. So you see this little pump line right here? We're going to draw a parallel with this pump, and I like to use my, my ruler for that. So we're going to do this, hold it right about there, and we're just going to mark it right along here. See what I'm getting at with that? Pretty easy. This whole front end just needs to come off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our screwdriver that I forgot to mention. And actually, I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm just going to go saw this in half. So I'm going to bring the camera over to the scroll saw and show you guys a quick video of me cutting the front off of it. And there you can see we have one Panther. Always make sure you have it pumped up before you do this so nothing gets back in the valve. But here you can see we have the front lopped off nice and level, and I'll just go ahead and go back over to the chair now. Alright everyone, as you see here we have this cut off flush with the front, and what we're going to need to do next is we're going to take the blaster apart real quick, and I'm just going to speed through this part real quick. Alright, now that we've got this all apart, this is the main meat of the blaster we're looking at. We'll just set the shell off to the side for now, and you're going to want to pump it up 1 or 2 times. I did 3. The pump is not plugged on this one yet, so I'm just going to set that off to the side. And as you see, the 3/4 to 1/2 inch bushing should fit pretty much directly over that. Now, I would like this to usually be a little bit shorter, so I'm going to pump it up again a little bit more. I'm going to hit it with the Dremel real quick with a cutting wheel. Alright guys, now that I've got this cut down, I like to have it about 3/16 of an inch tall right here, and this will still fit, should still fit right over, almost snaps right over it, and as you can see, you might be able to see inside of there, there's still a little dead space. And what I mean by dead space is space that's not pressure, that's not going to be able to get to the dart basically. And you see this little ring around here that is actually the front of the tank? Well, we need to fill this ring with the hot glue that we have heating up over here. So I'm going to go heat it up, and I'm going to fill this up with hot glue. I recommend low temp because you don't want to damage the inside or the piston of the blaster. So I'm going to cut it here and come back when I have it actually all filled in. Alright everyone, now that we have this filled up with hot glue and therefore eliminating all the dead space in the front, there's none of that dead space around the ring here. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take our sandpaper, and we're just going to need to rub around the lip of this, kind of where this is going to sit. And we'll go ahead and speed that up real quick for you guys. Alright, and then we're going to want to sand the inside of this real quick. I'm using a little bit of a rougher grade now because that one is a little too, I guess, fine. You just want to get a good rough hit on the inside edge and around this part here. And that just really roughens it up really good. And then I like to take rubbing alcohol and I like to clean both of the parts. This isn't absolutely necessary because we got a pretty rough surface going on, but it can't hurt. So I just rub it real quick, rub around the edge real quick where it's going to glue on. Hoping I'm getting all this on video, guys. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mix up our epoxy and get all this other crap out of the way. And I'm going to have a little bottom of a cup here and my plastic epoxy, which I'm pretty much out of. So we'll see what I can squeeze out of this tube. Alright guys, I just cracked open a new tube of epoxy because that last one ran out. So let's open her up. And you only realistically need about a dime-sized mixture of epoxy. It doesn't really have to be very much because you're not going, you're not filling in a gap. It has a really tight fit, so therefore it gets a good bond even with this small amount. And you just retract the plunger a little bit to suck it back in. And let me cap it off. And we'll speed through the mixing. Alright, so as you guys see, we got about a dime size when you put it all together mixture of epoxy. Now we take our internals, set that off to the side, and we have our coupler and our bushing and our Panther tank that have both been sanded, filled in with hot glue. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to smear a little bit of this epoxy all around the tank. It doesn't even have to be a particularly thick coat, just a nice little coating, and that'll usually do the trick. Now, you don't want to make it overflow all over the place because that'll interfere with shelf fitment. But, that can be avoided, but I'll show you guys what I do after this. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Alright, so you can see I've got a nice little ring of epoxy around there. I'm just going to stick this coupler on and hold it there for a little while. See how tight that coupler fits already? So we're going to hold it there, and then I'm going to take this piece of napkin or toilet paper, whatever, and I'm going to wipe around the edges here, just to get rid of any of that overflash. Let me grab some more. The surface area of this is what provides your strength. Not actually the adhesive is providing the strength. Let me just throw this out too. But this has a lot of surface area involved, so therefore you get a nice strong bond. So I'm just going to set this off over the side to dry, preferably straight up so it doesn't leak everywhere. And especially important is you need to make sure nothing, absolutely nothing gets in this valve. If you put on too much of epoxy, it'll leak up and through the coupler and then get inside there. It cannot happen. You need to prevent that at all costs. So I'm just going to set this off to the side and we're going to work on plugging our pump. There are two different methods that people use. I'm going to show you the easiest, which is going to be just putting some hot glue directly in the top of this to prevent the overpressure from cracking. And I'll go ahead and show you guys that real quick. You just take your preheated glue gun, low or high temp works just fine for this. And we're going to put some in there, about half full. You need to pat it down. I usually do it like this. I spit on my finger, and I make sure it's good and in there. Now, the second method I'm going to show you guys is a little more complex. This way works just fine for most people. If you want it to last as long as it possibly can, though, this next method will be the best way. So this should last plenty long. But let's move on to the second way. Alright, now the second way we're going to do that is we're going to completely destroy the overpressure valve system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker. I'm going to make a line from here to here. Now this is just so I can line it back up. And then you're going to want to cut this either on a scroll saw or any sort of cutting device. Again, I wouldn't do this unless you have a fairly good amount of tools to do this with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my finger up top here. I'm going to gently run this around the edge. Be careful because as soon as you cut through it, it's going to try to spring off into the distance and you'll never find it again. So, let me try. There we go. There we are. Alright, so now you see what we've got going on here. We've got, this is our little sealer. This seals against the hole in the front here. which once it gets to a certain pressure, it will compress the spring and allow air out. It's pretty much the simplest AR you can think, or overpressure you can think of. And basically all it does is just completely, when you get to a certain pressure, it just vents. It won't let you put any more in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to totally disable this. And what we're going to do is I'm going to get some more alcohol. And I'm going to clean every single part. Like the front piston. Try to get it inside of this piston if you can even. Now like I said guys, this is just an alternate method. The hot glue plugging works just fine for most people. It's not a big deal. Don't need to really clean these parts. I'm going to clean around the outside here. Just try to not rub your Sharpie all the way off. There we are. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take our super glue. And I really recommend a small pair of pliers for this. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold this in our pair of pliers, just really lightly. I'm going to take some super glue, and I'm going to coat this in super glue. The front rubber piston is now coated, and then we're going to press it back in to where it originally sat. And give it a good press to make sure it sets. And as you can see here, let me see if I can get a better shot of it. Our piston is totally glued to the front here. Now, a lot of people will replace the spring with a stronger one, and if you do replace this spring that was inside of here with a stronger one, it will crack at higher pumps. I myself have personally not found a spring that will pop at about 15 pumps. But if at all possible, keep the overpressure valve and replace the spring. I just do it this way because I find it fairly easy to do. And that's how I usually do it. So, there's that. Let that dry, and then we'll be right back. Alright guys, now that our super glue has all dried, I'm going to fill this up with hot glue essentially. Or, even better would work is epoxy, but I'm not going to mix up epoxy for this. So I'm just going to fill this up and let all the hot glue seep down in there. This is just, again, a second layer defense to make sure nothing moves. Alright guys, now that I've got that hot glue in there, you can kind of press the spring back in there if you want. It's just an additional layer of defense while the hot glue is still wet. And as you can see here, this will fit back together, but it's a little bit springy still. So we're going to lightly sand the outside of this real quick with a rougher grit sandpaper. Like so. You don't need to be very rough. Alright. Then eyeball about what length this is. And then we're going to cut that length out of our PETG here. This is just standard 1/2-inch PETG. This is the same stuff they use for barrels. And I'm going to measure this right here. And it is about that long. So I'm going to just cut it real lightly on these. Again guys, one last time. This is not a necessary way to do it. The pump plugging with hot glue works just fine. This is just precautionary for me. I'm going to get back to you once I cut this. It's not like wanting to cut. Alright everyone, now that we have our little piece of PETG cut, you will notice that it fits over the pump tube very, very snugly here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom piece here, and I'm going to put a nice ring of super glue around it here. Right along there. And I'm going to slip this PETG on there and force it down as far as I possibly can. So, like so. And there we are. Let me just wipe off the excess. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to insert this very slightly into the plunger, into this piece of PETG. It might take a little force. It's a pretty tight fit. And you know that line we made at the beginning? We're going to line this line up before we press it in. So, you just want it in there just a little bit. Trying to get super glue all over your hands. That's never fun. Alright, and now we're going to put another ring of super glue. Actually, it'd be a good idea if we removed our O-ring just in case. So I'm going to pull this O-ring off and I'm going to run another ring of super glue right here by the PETG. And then we're going to press down again hard. Alright. And there we are. We have a completely plugged pump from the inside. As you can see, our lines line up, our hole is still there. I'm not feeling any flash on there. We're going to slip our O-ring back on, and we're going to let this dry for about 15-20 minutes before we use it. Now, all of you may be thinking at this point, wow, all the internals are done. Can I just fit them back in the shell? That is not the case. Now what we're going to need our Dremel with a sanding drum. And the reason for this is, I'll get it up closer to the camera for you guys, is, well, hold on one second. I had the screws in here. Anyway, when you go to close it, you will see the front hole here is not big enough for our coupler. And it'll be illustrated if I put it inside the shell like so. Everything else will fit really well, except this will not close around the coupler, as you see here. And it's just like night finders. Whenever you do a night finder with an extended draw or a homemade plunger tube, you have to always widen the front out. And that's what we have to do with this. We have to take our Dremel, and we need to just keep doing circles and circles and circles and circles until we get a nice fit on the inside. This grips this pretty well. And this is going to take a little while. You're going to want to take a lot of time test fitting and taking a little bit off, and test fitting and taking a little bit off. Or you could just see PVC coupler this, and I think it would go straight through. But I like having the PVC coupler. So we're going to do this now, and I'm probably going to speed this up because it's going to take me a little while with the Dremel. Alright everyone, now that I've finished this, you can see we've got a nice tight fit on the bushing up front. And I'm going to give you guys an approximate hole size that we're going for. This is about how big it's going to need to be. And that'll just barely hug around the edge of the coupler, as you'll see here when I put it back together again. See, there's almost no wiggle room here. I mean, it's like rock solid, steady, nice and straight in there. By the time we put all the screws back, it'll be perfect. So what we're going to do is next we're going to move on to just final assembly. I mean, it's pretty much done now. And I'll just fast forward through the assembly. And what I'll show you guys is I actually lay a little bit of hot glue around this back part here. It's kind of hard to explain. Around the back of this, and then I assemble it just to help make sure everything stays in there. And you'll see that whenever I do the fast forward. So let's go do that. And there we have it, guys. A $5 blaster mounted to shoot well over 100 feet if done correctly. And the barrel I like to use with these is 8 inches of a Springer fit in your material. I use CPVC nested into PVC to fit in the coupler, as you see. And 15 pumps is what I use. I've heard that you can go more, but I use 15 pumps in all of mine. And the handle is very easy. The optional handle I have is very easy to add. If you'd like to see another video on that, please let me know. But overall, Great little blaster. $5 at your local Dollar General, Boscov's, Myers. I think you might be able to order them online now. So that's the Panther mod guide, guys. And I hope you guys have a nice day wherever you're at. And I'll talk to you guys later.